Mindfulness seems to be very commonplace these days, but that's not the case everywhere. In some countries, mindfulness is just getting started. Hello and welcome to Mindfulness Voyage. My name is Ted Meissner. Glad you could be here today. And we're going to be exploring what it's like to bring mindfulness into Bulgaria with one of the people who is spearheading that effort. I hope you enjoy today's conversation, and let's get started. Our guest today is Stassie Zaprianova-King. Stassie, welcome to the podcast. Good to see you today.
Good to see you, Ted. Thanks for inviting me.
I'm so glad you could join us because there's so many things that I want to unpack with you, but I'd like to start by sharing a little bit about your background with the guests. Two questions, really. First is, what brought you to mindfulness? And then saying just a little bit about your non-mindfulness work, because a lot of that pertains to what we're going to talk about today with cultural adaptations.
Right. If I start chronologically to go back and what brought me to mindfulness, I am a psychologist, and for a long time I've been looking for the right therapy, although I was not trained as therapist. I first started working as psychologist in organizations, so organizational development, organizational behavior, but have always looked for ways to help people in organizations or out of them. And it was 2006-07 when I had my second child, and with her came, I think now I can reminiscent that it was a hormonal imbalance. So I started experiencing strange things, which I had read about as psychologist, but never experienced in my body, especially. So I started asking people. I went to a few therapists, talking therapists. They didn't help with my sensations in the body and all these symptomatic stuff. So somebody said, and it was 2007 in the summer, exactly that time, why don't you try mindfulness? And I said, mindful what? And then they said there are some books, and then I just discovered the universe of it. First started reading a lot because as a coming from sciences, I just went through straight away to find books. And yeah, the first book I read was Yongey Mingyu Rinpoche, The Joy of Living. This was exactly, I think it was issued exactly in the year 2007. And then since then, it was like a magic. I started reading more and more, and I started looking around me for courses and that can give me more the experience. And then I was living in Belgium at that time, so it was not very easy to find a course, and I was not very good with speaking Dutch. So I waited until 2014 when I moved to the UK, and then I just whatever course I saw, I and I could afford as well. I joined, and I'm glad that I went to MBSR almost straight away. And this is when everything happened. I felt completely different with my body. And very gradually, the symptoms disappeared. Anxiety as well, anything that comes with actually hormonal disbalance. And then what happened is that very early of my practicing mindfulness, I decided that this is very a great thing because it's not a tool, it's not a method, it's something much more than that to bring to my fellow nationals in Bulgaria. because I think there is a huge gap into what people experience right now these days after 35 years of political transition and
Well, let's
economic
talk about that.
transition.
Let's focus on that right now, shifting a
Mhm.
little bit into what really made you want to bring mindfulness to Bulgaria. There are unique
Yeah,
conditions there that you're going to tell us about.
unique. Well, I don't know what you know about Bulgaria, but yeah, we were one of the communist bloc countries, very close to Russia. Some would call it even the 16th Republic of USSR when it was still USSR. And after the changes, the Berlin Wall fell, and the Eastern ex-communist countries opened to the Western world and Western mentality and the way Western democracies were functioning. We had as Bulgarians, I was there in Bulgaria at that time, hard times that I would say haven't, um, they have been better and then again worse. And yeah, the feeling of many fellow nationals and myself is that we've been going into a vicious circle in that. So as well, mental health in general, the state of mental health in Bulgaria needs, I would say, rapid reform. And so yeah, when I felt, experienced the miracle of mindfulness, I said, this is what I have to do. I really felt it, and that is my mission since then. I feel so compelled to do it that I just left a lot of things, including I was calling myself a consultant here in the UK, and I was working on projects, which happens from time to time as well, but I no longer want to call myself consultant. That's another conversation, I guess. But yeah, and since then, I think I met people, we did a lot, and the process is still on.
Still
We are
going.
just in the beginning.
Yeah.
Very, very, like if you compare with the human life, we are a toddler in mindfulness in Bulgaria.
So, with that, knowing that you're at the fairly early stages of this, what are some of
Mhm.
the challenges that you've run into? And maybe some of those are cultural, maybe some of them are just the state of mental health care in Bulgaria. What are some of the things you're running into?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of challenges. I think very early, actually, I introduced mindfulness in 2017, 18. I started there in person, a few programs, and also did like a taster here and there, still working with organizations mainly, but also with wider general public. And uh, what happened? People come, of course, with expectations. So in order to shape these expectations, you have to have a very good strategy, marketing strategy, I guess, to really communicate what is it about and how it's going to help them, and what they can find in that new thing. Basically, mindfulness as the word in Bulgaria did not exist. There were few books that were using the name, the word in the title, something like awareness or consciousness, but translated in Bulgarian, this meant something that was coming as well, like a notion from communism, like a very conscious communist person has to do this and this and this and this. And so people did not like that. And there was no interest in these books. They were not even, it was no Thich Nhat Hanh translated or John Kabat-Zinn, nothing like that. I think they first translated 4 books of John Kabat-Zinn in 2020. So no awareness around what mindfulness is and what it means, and not only with the public, but also psychologists. And one of the first challenges I had is to talk to professors at the university in psychology departments and explain to them that this is not just something in addition or something that you just practice or religious or spiritual or blah, blah, blah. Somebody said that to me once. So that is, almost a battlefield that I'm trying to not really strive about, but very slowly I realized that there's a huge patience is necessary for
Yeah.
that.
Sounds like some of what you're running into, Stassie, is here in the United States, a very similar situation where mindfulness for clinicians, therapists who want to include it, is that it's viewed as a technique, as one thing to add on to what they really do, which is therapy, instead of viewing this as it is a separate discipline with its own practice requirements and training requirements along with it. Does it sound like that's something similar to what you're running into?
Oh, yeah, definitely. As it comes to culture, though, I think because of diverse and liberal values in the United States, and because this science, when it became science in the Western world, was years and years ago in the 60s and 70s, then I guess the processes were different then, and political and economic conditions were different. In the case of Bulgaria, you have a very recently, relatively opening towards liberal values society that's been kept closed for many years. And so people are looking for anything, and they kind of eat everything and buy everything. And that brings a bit of, more difficulties for evidence-based mindfulness to enter the scene. Because what happens at the moment is, of course, for the last 5 years, they already know, people know what mindfulness is, or more or less. And a lot of people can say, I like it very much. I was in a course somewhere in France, and now I'm a teacher. I'm teaching it, and this is it. And so I find myself and the students that I've had MBSR courses recently, to try to also explain the differences and what it means really to be careful and aware of how you as a teacher work with the minds of people, and that is a very, very high responsibility.
Yeah, and I think that's a very good insight that you're having, Stassie, is that this is more complex than it may seem, and the general public, and it sounds like something the world over. I am hearing this from all parts of the world. There is a lot of information out there that's not entirely consistent with how we might be teaching. And it's not to say that all of that is bad. That's not what we mean.
Yeah.
It's that it can be a bit different. And the experience of listening to a 5-minute recording by someone who's reading someone else's words and doesn't really connect with it themselves is a very different thing than taking a course, doing the practice, and sustaining that to have that really take root in your life. So thank you for pointing that out. And one thing I'd like to ask is I'm curious about what some of your next steps are to bringing mindfulness to Bulgaria. I know you've started some of that. What are things you've got coming up that you're working on?
Okay. Yeah, I it was very intuitively start. I started with just tasters here and there and seeing how people would respond. So I really because in my other wearing another hat, I'm doing design thinking, and there you come and ask people and just work on from their needs. So this is how it happened. I did some initial tasters to just see the pulse of how people of certain groups would respond to that. And then in the pandemic, I started doing MBSR online. Then I did a few things and a retreat uh, in person. And since then, I've been as well not letting, not let whoever was interested, because people at session 8, they say, no, we don't want this to finish, let's do something. And so I thought to just have this energy and to give people what they actually wanted and needed and offer them some kind of continuation. And so we started doing with everyone who's already been on the program once monthly longer sessions online, or when I was there in Bulgaria. I travel very often. Actually, I'm there. These kind of mini retreats, 1 or 1.5 days, or even half day. So they have the chance to get together and get to know each other more. And from this kind of gatherings, then started growing a small community of people who wanted also to be teachers and to professionally use mindfulness. Most of them are coaches, few psychologists are there, and one or two. One is actually a medical doctor and pharmaceutical scientist. So with them, what's coming up is a new retreat, which is a prerequisite to start teaching the teacher training. And I'm now in negotiations with some organizations that can be a partner to us, because it's not for 1 or 2 people only to start that. And I'm very much aware, and I do not want to be in the center as myself only and the expert of everything person, because that's not sustainable, and it's not fair. So that's where we are. And in order to manage the process, and also as well to educate the public about mindfulness, we are right now training an AI chatbot, AI-based chatbot, to answer questions that are very often, very frequently asked about mindfulness and about the programs as well, and about why it has to be teacher-led, or the first doorway, at least, to it is to be done by a trained and qualified teacher.
Yeah. Yeah. And you bring up so many wonderful things as part of what you just said around why it makes a difference to have a trained teacher giving this, but also something you said earlier about that it's not about you, that this is a shared thing. And this is one of the key differences I see many times is when people are truly dedicated and committed to this, it's not about them. It's about, as other teachers I have had have said many times, it's about the M. It's about mindfulness. It's not about creating another cult of personality. And so thank you for that. And I'm wondering if there's just any parting words you have for the viewers here, anything you'd like to share before we let you go with the rest of your day.
Yeah, since you said that it's not about me, I've been always in search for friends, partners, and also people who can help us on this road. I found a few people who've started like us in their countries, and they have great experiences, and I am learning from them. Yeah, we would be very happy. I'm saying, and I'm speaking on behalf of this small group of teachers to be um, to collaborate with anyone who is interested. What I did actually the last year, I've been looking for other Bulgarians who have been trained in and qualified to do MBSR or teacher train, and I found a few there living outside of Bulgaria, like me, and one is actually she's moved just recently from the States, and I'm with my yeah, ready to embrace and working with them. That's what we are doing. We meet to discuss this.
Wonderful. Thank you
So
for that.
thank
And
you
for
for
those who are watching this, I will have some links for you in the places where links are found on this podcast. Our guest today, Stassie Zaprianova-King. Thank you so much for being here. Good to see you.
thank you for hosting this, Ted. Very, very much obliged. Thank you.
Thanks so much for being here today. If you got something out of today's episode, be sure to like, subscribe, comment, whatever it happens to be, whatever you're moved to do. And remember, every moment you have a choice. Just make it the best you can. Thanks, and I'll see you next time on Mindfulness Voyage.